Okay, this lesson, lesson number 4 of my Grandpa Art lessons, is designed to teach you how to sketch, but it is an extension of the uh, line contour lessons that I've already done. So this one is called multiple line contour. And if you're interested in handouts, I have a handout for each of these lessons, and you can get them. Go right now. You can go to lyncharlesfoster.com, and if you go there, you'll be able to see a link, or at least message me if you want to get a copy of these. And I'm not charging for them; they're just for your help. Okay. Now, multiple line contour is different than single line contour. When we were doing line contour before, we're talking about doing a drawing by just putting your eye on your object and then tracing it around your object in a continuous line, and you end up with a drawing of an object that is outline and is also contour. Okay, so that's the contour line drawing that I already taught you. Now, there are other ways to draw, and this particular method is one that artists use all the time, and it's called multiple line contour. And it works like this. When you draw a circle, let's say you go ahead and I say, you guys, you draw a circle. If you draw a circle, you make your hand go around like this, and you go around until it finally connects. And when you do that, it usually ends up kind of glumpy, gets kind of funny looking. You don't get a really good circle that way. And that's because when you do it, most of the time you're using your wrist. And you can't get your wrist to go around to do what you want it to do. Okay? So another way to do it is to use what's in physical education is called kinesthetic. Use your hands, your whole arm to make the circle. And we have a natural ability to make circles, do things with our arms that we can't necessarily do with a wrist. So if I make a circle using my whole arm, I just go around like this. When you look at that, you can see how it is rounded, but you can also see there's a few lines that aren't quite correct. Okay, and in multiple line contour, you make lines using your entire arm, but you emphasize the most correct line. You keep going around and around, and eventually the dark one is going to be the one that's going to be the roundest. Okay, so that's a pretty good way to think of that. Now, also in multiple line contour, it's a kind of sketching, you can make objects using different forms. Now, if I wanted to do a drawing like this old-time jug here, I was trying to find something that was light enough that you can see. Okay, I'm going to make a drawing of this. Okay, if I try to make a drawing of this using the other method, come down here, go back up, it ends up with the same problem that I had with the other one, and that's that it's all crooked and glumpy, and that's because it's difficult to make it do that. Okay, now I'll make another one here. This one, I'm going to use multiple line contour, but I'm going to analyze the jug. I'm going to look to see which kinds of geometric forms there might be in this jug. And the base of the jug, using my whole arm, is a cylinder. That's one of the forms. Then, when I go up the side of the jug, I get a dome. Okay, so the dome is like this. So the dome is really this kind of a shape here, only it has this cap on it. And then as I work up further up the jug, you can see there's another cylinder on top. And then the handle springs off of that, and you end up with a drawing of a jug. The nice thing about this method is it ends up being symmetrical, which was what was the problem with the other one. The other one was all lumpy and crooked. This one is straight, and that's because I use these different forms. Now there are several basic forms, and I got these forms years ago when I was about 11 years old from the artist. His name was John Nagy, G-N-A-G-Y, and he was one of the first of the television artists. He actually broadcast live from New York City, and I watched him because I lived in New York area, upstate New York, and I watched his shows, and I learned how to draw by watching him. So thanks to John Nagy for that. And the different kinds of forms that he uses and I use, okay, just the basics. This is a cylinder. Remember, this is sketchy, so it doesn't have to be, the lines don't have to be all perfect. And then there's a cone. Make the little circle at the bottom, put the top on the, like a hat. And then there is a cube. And the trick to making the cubes, in case you don't know how and you don't know what perspective is, make these three lines go the same direction. Then make these three lines go the same direction. So these are verticals. They're going this way, all three of them. And then these are going in this direction. And they're all agreeing with each other. And that's how you make them look like, that's how you make a cube. Some people have a lot of trouble with that one. Okay. And then, of course, you have this, a sphere, a circle, a hemisphere, like a half a world, now, or a bowl, okay, you can see that coming. And then you have a rectangle, which is really just the same as a cube, only it's extended out, and you end up with these forms. Okay, those are the forms that you're going to look for when you're trying to create things. And you can create all kinds of things using these things. For instance, let's say I want to do a drawing of a coffee cup. That would be perhaps a hemisphere with a handle. Very simple. And it could have another little, like a small thin cylinder or something at the bottom, but it makes a pretty good coffee cup. It's not hard to do. You can do fruits. You can do, let's say you want to do grapes. Do a bunch of grapes like this, all different shapes. But just pretty much try to use your whole arm. Don't put your hand on the page. I was doing that on the board. That's not a good thing. Don't put your hand down on the paper. You want your arm to be able to move. And it's so tempting to hold your hand down. But when you do, you lose that natural ability to draw things that you get by not doing that. Okay? Okay? Different sizes. See, you can make grapes. It's easy to do. Not hard. Other things you can make, keep this lesson short. You can do drawings of like books. Let's say you have a stack of books. And I've done several paintings based on books. You can see you've got a cylinder, or you have this kind of flattened out rectangle, and then you might have one that extends past it, a bigger one, like this. Okay, so you can put some pages in here if you want. Okay, but I'm just drawing from out of my memory, and I put things in my memory, so I know how to do that. And you don't, so you need to keep that in mind when you're doing your drawings. It's much easier for you if you have something to copy. And there's so many shapes that work really good. This particular one here, you can analyze this one. It's my paint bucket. I use this for painting. Okay, what's this? Well, basically, a great big cube like this. Just analyze the objects and see, okay, what's on top? Well, it's really a cylinder, you see? Okay. Up here. And then guess what? You're going to end up with a drawing of this particular object, and it has a little cut in the back here for your thumbs and your fingers to fit into. But you end up with the object, and you just copy it. It's pretty easy to do. All right. Last few things I want to talk about. One of them is in this kind of sketching, for instance, when you're doing the drawing, you keep going around and around. It doesn't matter how many lines you get. One, you do not, okay, no erasing. No erasing. Okay, do not erase, because in order to erase, you got to stop and fuss with it. Okay, so don't worry about that. Just keep going around and around until you get the most correct line. Because if you wanted to do something with this drawing, a sketch, it's very simple to take your sheet of paper, coat it with graphite. Take a graphite stick or something, or you can use carbon paper, which they don't make anymore. But you coat the back of it, and if you put that over another sheet of paper, it will transfer this drawing to another sheet, and you can just trace it so that you get the most correct line when you transfer it. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, let's see. Okay, the last things I wanted to just mention is that once you get these things sketched out, decide where your light source is, watch for the light source, and then you're able to, in sketching, you can go ahead and sketch in the shading. And then you can add the shadows using the same method. See how my arm is still moving? I could turn this particular thing up into some kind of a fruit if I want to, or whatever, but I get shading, okay? And you can do that with all the different kinds of objects, and you'll end up with some pretty interesting things. Okay, so this is a kind of sketching, multiple line contour sketching, using your whole arm. Don't put your hand down on the paper. Don't bother to erase. If you're having trouble erasing, use pen so that you can't erase, and then I think we're all done. So we'll see you next time with another lesson. Thank you. And